talking a lot today about family histories and Valentine's and stuff. My family history, as I know it, as it's been reported to me, starts just before World War I in Eastern Europe. My father's side of my family, which was known as Adels back then, before they got to the island and it was changed for them. But they were in Belarus, right near the border of Ukraine. And this is all part of Tsarist Russia at that point. This is just before the Communist Revolution. And my great-grandfather was a little kid. And the Tsars, they employed the Ukrainian Cossacks as their enforcers, sort of like ICE today, to go through the villages and enforce, and keep the people terrified, and also collecting taxes and whatnot. They'd come through on pogroms, raiding the villages, raping and pillaging, and stealing from them for taxes and whatnot. And my great-grandfather at that point was a little kid. And he was terrified, frozen in the middle of the street, or the dirt road, as the Cossack came on his giant horse, running through the middle of the village, and just rode my great-grandfather down, stomping on his chest with the horse's hoof, collapsing his chest. My own father remembers years later sitting in his grandfather's lap and pressing in on the flesh in his chest where there was this horse's hoof indentation as the way the ribs had healed in that shape. Press in on his flesh. But that didn't scare them away for some reason in my great-grandfather's family. It wasn't until the Bolshevik Revolution that they decided, oh no, this is too much. And they were going to flee Europe and come to America. Meanwhile, about roughly 6,000 kilometers away over in Hungary, my mom's side of the family, my great-grandfather, this little Hungarian dude, he was a preteen at this point when he gets kidnapped by gypsies and sold, trafficked in today's terminology, but sold and sold again and sold again till eventually he ended up in Utah in forced labor in the salt mines, which he did not take to at all. He did not really enjoy that at all, and decided he was getting out of there and hoboed his way across the country to New York City, where he knew his oldest sister, had been living. And by this point, by the time takes place over several years, his working there and then eventually laboring there and then eventually escaping and making his way across country. So she barely even recognizes him when he arrives, covered in suntan and filth and everything else. But eventually he's able to make communication, and he puts some money together, and he goes back to Hungary just in time for World War I to break out, which is no time to be a Jew in Hungary, getting conscripted or otherwise abused by the Hungarians. So his family also decides to come back to America properly this time and head back to where his family is. And he eventually grows up. So both of those sets of great-grandparents, they settle somewhere in North Jersey, not that far from each other, but never meet, never know each other, have kids, get married, have kids. On my mom's side of the family, they have a tailor shop. On my father's side of the family, he's a salesman and a union man during the union tumult of the early turn of the century. Both my parents are born. They end up meeting at Temple University in Philadelphia. I remember, this is a little weird aside, but I do remember my mom often, every time Bill Cosby would be on TV, she'd be like, oh, I went to college with him. He was at Temple at the same time. And she stopped bragging about that later in life. But they met at Temple University, and my father her father had a meatpacking company in this small town in Pennsylvania, which my father joined up. And so over the years, eventually, they produced myself as well as my older brother. And now I have a small food business here in Dunedin, Florida. And I'm with this lovely young woman who I met in Key West. And that is the long and short. Now I'm dealing with autocratic leaders here in America, coming full circle. But that is my immigrant story, my story here.